Good morning, Santa Barbara, and all the people in the world who are listening in via the internet. This is the Mike Gormley Show, heard on KTMS radio in Santa Barbara, 990 AM, 97.9 FM. And there's a few of the other areas that we pop up, like KOR Radio in London and Soul of India, Indie in New York, several others, and Radio Candy in Los Angeles is a great one. And we're on the YouTube, so you can go, we're everywhere. So I'm Mike Gormley, who in the past has included musician, journalist, record executive, and artist manager. And when I was a record executive, I had the honor of working with one of the greatest, I was going to say Canadian, but actually any greatest guitarist you can find in the world, in the world of pop, rock, and for that matter, jazz. Randy Bachman is with us here today. Hi, Randy. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm up in Canada, and it's a nice day.
Good. You're out in, you're not in Vancouver. You're out in the islands, right?
Yeah, well, in Victoria on Vancouver Island, which is much nicer than Vancouver.
Yes, it is. It certainly is. Although Vancouver's not bad.
No, it's pretty good.
As cities go. Anyway, I want to catch up on what's going on. I called you about coming on the show because I had the chance to see BTO perform about a month ago in Los Angeles. At the end of the show, you yelled, "BTO is back." Where's BTO been? What's going on?
BTO's been arguing. When you have a band and you're with your brothers, there's no difference between playing on stage and thinking of last Christmas when he got a bicycle and you got a yo-yo. Do you know what I mean? And you're pissed off at him or whatever. Or Mum liked him best, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when BTO kind of ended, which was kind of the late 70s, when rock and roll ended, the Doobies packed it in, ZZ Top packed it in, Aerosmith, everybody went on a hiatus because disco came in, which is like one girl or one guy singing to a digital tape, and there was no rock and roll in bars anymore. They altered into discotheques. So everybody took a little break. Then, through happenstance, my brother, the younger brother, Robbie, you know him, the drummer, my dad said to me, my dad was passing away, so in his last little time on earth, said, would you let your brother Robbie use the BTO so he can earn a living? Because there was nothing going on. And I said, yeah, I'm gonna use my name, Randy Bachman. I want to keep Bachman-Turner Overdrive, but he could use the BTO. So he took the BTO and he went and made some money and toured the world as BTO. He passed away last year. I lost all three of my brothers in the last 2 years because of COVID. And so I'm the last surviving of the four Bachman boys. And I got the BTO back. So when I said BTO is back, that means I could use that again legally without cease and desist and all that stuff going on. And it's really good. But as you saw the show, we honor BTO the way it was. We show my brother Robbie on drums playing away. He was an incredible drummer.
Yeah.
We show Fred Turner. The whole band is up on screen. It's kind of like Lynyrd Skynyrd. We're keeping the music going, and I'm the last surviving guy. My son Tal has joined me, and there's pictures of Tal playing drums when he was 2, when we were just starting BTO in the early 70s. He was 2 or 3 back then. So he's kind of evolved being into the band and drummed with me on many of my projects. So we're continuing the BTO thing going, and the fans are loving it, and we're getting requests through YouTube saying stuff like, we're going to drive 600 miles to hear Little Gandy Dancer. We've never heard it in our life on stage, or we never heard Shotgun Rider, or anything we never heard where you play these songs. So we kind of have a set list, and we vary off it because we got to play the standard taking care of business, I ain't seen nothing yet and stuff. And we go and play what the audience wants. That's just a lot of fun.
Do you include any Guess Who numbers in there? Or it's
yes.
BTO? Oh, you do?
No, because we've had so many fans asking. They said, look, you wrote all the hits for the Guess Who. How about doing those? And so 2 or 3 songs into the set, like we opened Rolling Down the Highway, it shows the trucks. It shows our European tour, which I think you saw way back in the mid-70s.
Mhm.
with Cees Wessels. Remember him over in Holland?
Yeah.
And then I say, well, I was in another band. We're going to give you some of their songs. And my first hit was Shaking All Over. We do Shaking All Over. We go right into These Eyes, Laughing, Undun, No Time, American Woman, No Sugar Tonight. And then we're back into BTO. Then we do Stayed Awake All Night and all the hits. So people are getting like double the money. It's like going to see Paul McCartney. You get a Beatles song, you get a Wings song, and you get some of his own songs. And
Sure.
I'm very lucky to have had 6 or 7 or 8 hits with each band that's very recognizable, plus the odd album cut that was, an album radio favorite back in the day, not a single, but got a
Yeah.
lot of play on FM radio.
Now, BTO got a lot of FM play before, um, heading on to hits.
Right.
Let It Ride, and I'm trying to remember, there was a really quite jazzy one,
Blue Collar.
Blue Collar, yeah, wonderful, but really jazzy, yet it had the same kind of punch as the other songs.
Well, it was the only diverse song. The whole first album was us trying to rock out. And I'm not a blues based guy. I'm a jazz based guy. Because my first guitar mentor, who I hung out with, Lenny Bro, was one of the great jazz guitar players of all time. And he was only a year older than me. So when I was learning finger picking, like Chet Atkins style, it evolved into Howard Roberts, Barney Kessel, Tel Farlow jazz stuff rather than blues. Blues is pretty easy. It's all like one scale and a bunch of feel.
Yeah,
Jazz is very mechanical and very numerical and very much like arithmetic with all kind of numbers and chords and different notes in the chords. So I had a bit of that. So to make the album a little bit different rather than a blues song, and when you're a white guy from Winnipeg, you can't really authentically do the blues. You know what I mean? So we put that jazz song on Blue Collar. And I also had a jazz song earlier with the Guess Who, She's Come Undone. That was the same kind of influence. And then I wrote one later on called Looking Up for Number One that was on the BTO Head On album. So every once in a while, I like to get into a little jazz thing and just have a little bit of fun doing that because it's different.
sure. Well, I was going through some of the music, and that I remember was probably one of my favorite songs when we were listening to your album before it even came out. Just one
Yeah.
that caught my ear. It was nicely done.
It still gets a lot of airplay. And my great thrill was I released a couple of jazz albums for fun. And I was opening for George Benson at the Toronto Jazz Festival
Hmm.
a couple of years ago. And he came up to me, he said, I'm driving around in Detroit. I hear this song on the radio. It's on rock radio. I can't believe it. It's a jazz song with great jazz guitar and a double time jazz ending. And I found it was BTO, and I love that song. So for me, from George Benson, that was like a big deal. That was
Sure,
really
of
big.
course, of course. But Lenny Bro was a big deal. I mean, I don't know how many people would know his name, but he influenced a lot of people in Canada, at least, maybe beyond. Is that right?
Yes, I think the NAMM show's going on right now in LA. Whenever I've been to a NAMM show, which I've gone for the last 20 years, and for people who don't know, NAMM is National Association of Musical Merchandise, where you go and you see all the latest guitars and pedals and synths and drums and everything. And I'd be walking around there, and every guitar player would come up to me and say, thank you for the Lenny Bro stuff. Because as a thank you to Lenny Bro, basically taught me 2 years of guitar, and I learned my vocabulary from him, what to play, what not to play. He always played me Chet Baker and said, play like he sings. He sings and he waits. Then he sings and he waits. Then you appreciate it. So you can't just play guitar and do a bunch of notes. Pretend you're breathing. You got to play a thing and then take a breath and then think of what you're going to play. So he's also taught me some playing etiquette. So all these guitar players are coming to me saying, thank you for the Lenny Bro stuff. I started my own label called Guitar Archives, and everybody started to donate me Lenny Bro Live. So I must have on the Guitar Archives website 6 or 7 Lenny Bro CDs that I gathered tapes and cassettes and cleaned them up and mixed them out and released them for all the Lenny Bro fans. And since then, his kids have come forward and I've given them all the tapes. But I wish somebody like Johnny Depp, who's quite a good guitar player and looks like Lenny used to, kind of like a pirate with a little mustache in the hair. I wish he would do the Lenny Bro story, because I've got 2,000 hours on CD digitally of Lenny Bro that I don't know what to do with anymore. There's no record stores. I used to sell these to record stores and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody's interested. If anybody is interested, through you, they can get a hold of me. I've got hundreds and hundreds of hours all cleaned up, ready to release of Lenny Bro in every stage. And he played country and rock and jazz and Indian and classical and flamenco. I've got great stories of him. He was like the consummate guitar player, not just jazz. He knew everything. He started playing when he was 5 years of age.
Amazing. Amazing. But he wasn't Canadian, was he? He seemed to be there a lot.
They lived in Maine. His mother and father sang, like, remember the Cowboys, Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, Dale Evans,
Yeah.
Johnny Cash, June Carter. It was a country band. They were called Hal Lone Pine and the Pioneers. And he was Hal Lone Pine Jr. So his dad would come out with fringes and a cowboy hat like Roy Rogers. His mother sang like Dale Evans. And he would be playing like Chet Atkins style guitar behind him. And they're doing Ray Price and Gene Autry songs, Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, at the beginning of rock and roll rockabilly. And they moved from Maine to Winnipeg, Manitoba. I don't know why, but Winnipeg, Manitoba had a station that was CKY that was 50,000 watts. And being at the top of the Great Plains, you could hear CKY all over Chicago and down south and everywhere. You heard the station all night, like hearing Wolfman Jack out of Mexico. A couple of 100,000 watts. You heard that everywhere at nighttime. So a lot of people knew who Lenny Bro was, and he was just a really great influence on me. And then they moved to Winnipeg and stayed there about 3 or 4 years. He didn't have a house. They lived in a trailer. But when they got a house, it was right across the street from a girlfriend of mine. And it was so far and so cold in Winnipeg, like -40 for the whole winter long. To go back and forth to school for lunch, it was like a pain. I used to go to these girls' house a block away. Their mother, we went to the same church together. And their mother would give me lunch, and they'd go back to school. There was 2 twins. I'd go across the street where Lenny Bro his parents had rented a house. And he would just be waking up. So every day from like 1 o'clock till 4 or 5 in the afternoon, I'd be there with Lenny Bro, and he'd be putting on Chet Atkins, Merle Travis, Barney Kessel albums, rock and roll albums, Elvis Presley and stuff like that, and learning the stuff by moving the needle on the record, on the turntable.
Wow.
And I learned that way for a couple of years. And at the end of the year, my mother came and said, "Something's wrong with your report card. It says you missed 62 afternoons." And I said, "I have missed 62 afternoons. I've been playing hooky every afternoon. I'm going to Lenny Bro's, but I don't care about school anymore. I'm going to be a guitar player." And that started then I joined the Guess Who, and I got a Gretsch guitar, and boom, here I am with you.
There you are. It's now along the way, whenever you talk to a guitarist, the name Les Paul comes up. I'm going to assume there's some influence from Les Paul on your work.
Well, when you're a guitar player and you have the hunger, you listen to everything. And so I would listen to Chet Atkins. You listen to Elvis, because Scotty Moore behind Elvis played like a rock and roll Chet Atkins style. He's playing rockabilly songs, but not pure country. And then you hear about Les Paul on the radio, and you hear this thing, you go, this guy's playing all this at once. And it's amazing, because he invented double tracking and, dubbing with tape recorders.
Yeah.
And I'm about 16. And 3 songs in Winnipeg are in the top 10. Via Con Dios, How High the Moon, and then another one by Les Paul and Mary Ford. And they're playing in Winnipeg at a place called the Rancho Don Carlos, which is a nightclub, a supper club. So without asking my parents, I get on the bus after school. I go to the other side of Winnipeg, which is about 3 bus transfers, and I'm there to see Les Paul. And when I get there, it's about 5:30 in the evening, and I go to the door and I say, "Can I get in?" And the guy says, "You can't get in. It's a supper club. We serve alcohol. Unless you're with an adult, you're only 16. You can't get in. You got to have somebody over 21. You can't get in." So I go in front. I'm sitting in front of the bus stop, and a black Cadillac pulls up. And the window rolls down, and it's Les Paul. And he says, he's driving. He says, "Hi, kid. Are you here to see me?" And I go, "Yeah, but I can't get in." He says, "I'll get you in, carrying my guitar." So I carried his guitar in the back door into the kitchen. Now, this is a supper club where they're serving trays with dinner and drinks on. So it had swinging doors on the kitchen that had big round windows like a porthole on a boat. So the waiters wouldn't be knocking the doors into each other. So I got to stand in the kitchen next to 4 tape recorders that he would be running from his guitar. It was called the Les Pulverizer. That was record, stop, play, rewind. He would explain to the crowd we'd play a rhythm track, then a bass track, and Barry Ford would sing. And I'm standing beside his tape recorders watching his behind, and his son was playing drums. So it was him and his son and Barry Ford. After the show, he comes in, he says, I said, can you teach me a lick? How High the Moon? Teach me that lick that everybody plays. So he teaches me the lick. And it's great. And he signed my little album that I took, and I go home. Many years later, I'm with BTO. I'm opening for Van Halen, the 5150 tour. We're playing the Nassau Coliseum in New Jersey, and Les Paul shows up to say hi to Eddie and Sammy. And he comes up to me in the dressing room and goes, hey, kid, do I know you? And I go, yeah, the Rancho Don Carlos. And he said, oh, come on down tomorrow to the Iridium. I play this club every night. Come on in, I'll leave your name at the door. So I go down there to see him. And halfway through the night, he says, I've got a friend in the audience. I want to come up on stage. And I taught him some licks. And I'm wondering who this is. And it's me. And he called me up on stage. So he said, we're going to play How High the Moon. I want you to play the lick. And I did. And he said, okay, let's do one of yours. And I say, okay. And I do Taking Care of Business. And he plays it with me.
Really?
And he had his normal guitar player with him, who's another guy who played a black Les Paul, and a stand-up bass player whose name was Nikki Parrott. She was a lady from a great musician from Australia. So there's a video of me somewhere playing TCB with Les Paul and Nikki Parrott and his other guitar player.
That's amazing. But he knew it, or is he just that good that he could figure out what you were doing?
He's that good. And I said, look, it's 3 chords. And here's another thing. I go to Neil Young's birthday party a couple of years ago in LA at the Troubadour. And I'm there. Neil introduced me to Graham Nash and Stephen Stills and everything. And then Neil says to me, you know the story you say about Les Paul? And I goes, yeah. And he says, I was there. I go, what? I didn't see you there. He said, I was at the front table. My mother booked a dinner thing. She ordered dinner. I was eating pork chops and watching Les Paul from the front while you were watching his ass from the door in the kitchen. So I thought that was pretty funny. But Neil was there in the front row.
That's how long you've known Neil Young. He's from Winnipeg, although
yeah,
kind of Toronto, but
yeah, he moved to Winnipeg when he was about 14 or 15. I met him then. I got a Gretsch guitar. He got a Gretsch guitar. He would borrow our amplifier because he had a guitar, no amplifier. And the Guess Who, we had amplifiers. He'd call and say, you guys have a gig next Friday. I need an amp. And we would take down the amp, watch him play. He'd come and watch us play. It was so rare to see a real amplifier and real guitar in Winnipeg growing up. There was no guitar stores. They had what they call music stores that sold organs and pianos and sheet music and reeds for your flute, reeds for your sax and saxophone. They sold every instrument going way before guitar stores. So when a guitar came in, everybody went to look at it in the window. They had like one guitar. So you would want to buy this guitar, and it was gone. They were gone. You waited till another one came in.
That's amazing. We're running into commercial time pretty soon. One quick question. You mentioned your brothers you worked with and grew up with, but you also worked with. Now, and you've got a large family. Besides your son, who had a top 10 record somewhere in the late 90s.
Yeah, She's So High was a big hit.
Yeah. Are there other musicians in the family that you work with or watch at least?
I watch them with great awe because all my kids play and sing just like that, just like that. They can pick up any instrument and figure it out. They just chose to be and have a normal life because they're used to they didn't want what they had with me. Hi kids, I'm home for a week. Let's go crazy. I'll take you everywhere. And then I'm gone for 2 weeks. You're on your own. Yeah. Then I'm back for 2 weeks. And so it's such an off and on life. They didn't want that. And I appreciate that they wanted to just have a normal life. They all write great songs. I got another son, Brigham, who's really great. He's 10 years younger than Tal. All my daughters sing like Janis Joplin, like Aretha Franklin, like Carole King. They play piano. They write songs and everything. They chose a different life.
Yeah, well, you can't blame them for that. They've seen what the kind of work you have to do. Although I'm sure they're very proud of what you do. It's just they're not going to do it. That's all.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right, we're going to step away for a commercial. Given the fact we're on radio, we're going to listen to. I think we're going to listen to "Let It Ride," and we'll be back in a minute.